Tonight's regular board meeting will begin in approximately 30 seconds. The meeting will begin in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2.
Good evening. The school board meeting for May 26, 2015 is now in session. Pam, roll call, please.
Mr. Craig?
Present.
Mrs. Belford?
Present.
Mrs. Henderson?
Here.
Mrs. Nisi?
Here.
Mr. Ziegler?
Present.
Michelle Irwin, Director of Community Relations, will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That brings us to the adoption of the agenda. Dr. Bingley.
Thank you, Ms. Nisi, and members of the board. On this evening's agenda, we have administrative staff recommendations, 1 recognition item, 1 presentation, 29 consent items, and 6 information items, as well as board member reports and discussion points. You also have the yellow supplemental agenda, which are changes made to the agenda since being released to the public. There are administrative staff recommendations that were added and revised, 4 consent revisions, item F10 on student expulsions, item F19 on departmental reorganization plans capital, item F23 on Brevard Public Schools ESOL endorsement program, and item F24 on Brevard County Athletic Coaching endorsement program. Also, there has been an information addition, item H40, on the Department of Juvenile Justice 2015-2016 calendar.
What are the wishes of the board?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion was made to approve by Mrs. Belford, seconded by Mrs. Henderson. Is there any discussion? Please vote. Motion carries unanimously. Dr. Bingley, let's move on to the administrative staff recommendations.
Thank you, Ms. Nisi, and members of the board. Under item A7, you have 23 administrative staff recommendations to consider.
I think that one's a record tonight. What are the wishes of the board?
Move to approve.
Second.
Yeah, I showed as A6 instead of A7. Oh, okay. Yeah, I was going by the script too, Dr. Bingley, but it is A6.
Thank you for defending Ms. Nisi. It is A6. I stand corrected.
But in the meantime, I forgot who made the motion in the second. It was Mr. Ziegler and Ms. Thank you. Is there any discussion on our Guinness Book of World Record administrative recommendations? Okay, so we won't keep them waiting any longer. Please vote. All the way at the bottom of the list. Of course, the retirement I will vote no on, but sorry, Mr. Wilcoxon, we're going to make you stay a little bit longer. Motion carries unanimously. Dr. Bingley.
Thank you, members of the board, for moving that item forward. And as has become customary, I would like to take the opportunity to congratulate and welcome some of our administrative staff, particularly many of them now jumping into that role for the first time. And we want to give them an opportunity to stand up and be seen and let them tell all about themselves and introduce any guests that they brought with them as they embark on this exciting career path. So first, let us welcome Melanie Cleveland to the position of Assistant Principal at Heritage High School. It's a great day to be a Panther. Effective July 1st. Ms. Cleveland comes to us from Orange County Public Schools, where she most recently serves as the Senior Administrator of Curriculum and Instruction. Ms. Cleveland.
Hi, thank you so much. It is a great day to be a Panther, and I am so excited to embark on this new journey, and I'm loving it that I have so many friends to join me on that trip. Thank you, board. I appreciate it. My lovely husband of 33 years is traveling tonight, but his heart is here with us, and he's been a great support through all of this, and I appreciate Dr. Harris. Thank you so much.
Welcome. Now let us welcome Jennifer Clark as she moves from the position of math coach at Coquina to the position of assistant principal at Oak Park Elementary effective July 1st.
Hi there. I want to thank the board. I am very excited about this new opportunity, and I want to thank Ms. Brockwell for giving me this opportunity. It's been very exciting. And my current principal, Mrs. Hudson, I owe all of my opportunities to her. She brought me in, and she gave me my leadership opportunities, and without her, I wouldn't be where I am today. So thank you. And my husband is here to support me as well, and I thank him.
And next, we want to say congratulations to Kimberly Harris. Ms. Harris is moving from the position of teacher at Oak Park Elementary to the position of assistant principal at Oak Park effective July 1st. Ms. Harris.
Dr. Bingley and the board, thank you very much. I am very excited to be here tonight and work under Mrs. Brockwell. We've heard nothing but good things, so I know it's going to be a wonderful year. I also am very excited to start this next step of my career at Oak Park, a place where I've called home for 19 years. And I look forward to working more closely with the families and the students at Oak Park. And with me tonight, I brought my support team, my 3 boys, Andrew, Matthew, and Stephen, and my husband, James. Thank you.
Next, congratulations also to Joshua Torres on his reclassification from the position of assistant principal at Madison Middle School to the position of assistant principal 12-month at Madison effective July 1st. So from 10-month to 12-month. Joshua.
Good evening. I'd first like to thank the board, Dr. Bingley. Also, a really good thank you to Dr. Reinhardt and DJ for their continuous support. They've made my job much easier. My principal, Ms. Tomlinson, who has been tremendously supportive in my new role, and my family who's here, and friends. Thank you very much.
And now, congratulations to Karen Tabor on her reclassification and transfer from the position of ESE Title I teacher at Cambridge to the assistant principal at Mims Elementary, also effective July 1.
I'd like to thank the board and Dr. Bingley, along with Ms. Tressler and Dr. Reinhardt for giving me this opportunity to do this at Mims Elementary. And I'm very grateful for Ms. Mercer and Ms. Hurst for giving me those leadership opportunities to make me part of who I am today. And I'd like to thank my family and friends that came with me today. Thank you.
Feel free if you want to make some of your family members stand up and we can applaud them, but just a thought. So congratulations also now to Michelle Braun for her reclassification transfer from the position of Title I teacher at McAuliffe Elementary to the position of assistant principal, also at McAuliffe. Congratulations.
Thank you, Dr. Bingley and the board, and Dr. Mullins and Ana Diaz. I'd also like to thank Mrs. Roddenberry. She has really given me so many opportunities to become a strong leader at McAuliffe Elementary. I'm also very excited to work with Mrs. Finstead. And I would also like to introduce, since you said that, my girls. Girls, stand up. I'm going to get it later. Alexis, Sophia, and Olivia. They're all in Brevard Public Schools, and my husband, Alex, for their continuous support during this process. Thank you so much.
And now, congratulations to Nicole Gauman as she moves from the position of teacher at Meadow Lane Primary to the position of assistant principal of Meadow Lane Intermediate, moving right next door.
Hi, I want to thank the board members and Dr. Bingley, also Dr. Mullins and Ms. Diaz for this opportunity. Ms. Nash and Ms. Schwab from next door at Intermediate, thank you for choosing me to be part of the Meadow Lane Intermediate family. To my mentor, Ms. Keiss, for her guidance and all the many opportunities she's given me. I wouldn't be here today without her. To my husband, who is my strong person at the end of the day, and my 2 children that do not sit as nice and still as yours that are at home today, for being my happy place at the end of the day. Thank you.
I'm sure they're on the couch watching you even as we speak. Next, we want to congratulate Annie Miller, teacher on assignment at University Park Elementary, and will join Columbia Elementary on July 1st as their new assistant principal. Ms. Miller.
I want to say thank you to Dr. Bingley and the board, also to Ana Diaz and Dr. Mullins, and my heartfelt appreciation to Ms. Donna Ensminger from University Park Elementary. Through her, I've gained a lot of experiences and leadership roles. And as sad as it is to leave home for the past 12 years where I've been, I'm excited to step into the position at Columbia and wish Ms. Rush a very happy retirement. And I can't wait to get started.
And next, we want to congratulate Kristen Passanisi as she moves from the position of Title I teacher at Riviera Elementary to the position of assistant principal at Discovery Elementary.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bingley and members of the school board. I also want to thank Dr. Mullins and Mrs. Diaz for this wonderful opportunity and the vote of confidence. I have to thank my current principal, Mrs. Piccolella. She's in here, I just don't see where she is. And she just has been my biggest cheerleader and has given me so many opportunities at Riviera, and I thank her for that. I also want to thank my new principal, Mrs. Evander, and my new teammate. I'm very excited to start there with the team at Discovery, and I think it's going to be a great partnership. And then finally, I want to thank my family that's here, who's given me their unwavering support and encouragement to achieve this goal. Thank you.
And next, congratulations to Kara Wittick for her reclassification transfer from the position of teacher at Hoover Middle School to the assistant principal at the Great Southwest Middle School.
First, I would like to thank you and the board. I appreciate you guys honoring us here tonight. And I would like to say I'm thrilled to accept the position of assistant principal at Southwest. I sincerely thank Mr. Shearer for selecting me for this position. I'm definitely eager to begin my work in the Great Southwest and look forward to learning from your leadership. Additionally, I would like to thank my current principal, Ms. Weibelt. You've been extremely supportive through this process. Even in our short time at Hoover, I've learned a great deal from you and have a feeling I will continue seeking your mentorship for the years to come. Next, I would like to thank my colleagues past and present who have mentored, motivated, guided, and supported me for years. All whom have worked with me know my passion for education. I look forward to positively impacting the education of students in a new way. One of my students is sitting right here in front of me, so I'm excited to embark on my new journey. And then my husband, Trevor, and son, Ryder, are definitely the keys to my happiness. They are not here tonight as well, but we will definitely celebrate soon. To our parents and family in the Panhandle, I cannot wait to celebrate the success with all of you. And I would also like to extend a special thanks to Dr. Mullins for his leadership, and I'm proud to work for Brevard Schools and serve our students with excellence. Thank you.
And next, Laura Barna, we congratulate you on your reclassification transfer from the position of guidance counselor at Delora Middle to the position of assistant principal at Central Middle School.
Thank you, Dr. Bingley and the board. Thank you to Dr. Mullins and Mr. Kirk for giving me this opportunity. I'd also like to thank Mrs. Shirley and Mr. Pruitt, the administrative team at Delora, for mentoring me all these years and allowing me the opportunities for leadership roles and responsibilities. And lastly, I want to thank my family, my husband Alex, and our 2 kids, and for your support and your encouragement all these years. Thank you.
And now we want to recognize Buster Clark for his reclassification transfer from the position of teacher on assignment at Palm Bay High School to the position of assistant principal at Melbourne High School effective July 1. Mr. Clark.
I'd like to first thank my wife, Stacy, and my 4 children, my mom and dad, my family. Without them, there's no chance that I'd be standing here today. I'd also like to thank my mentors, Mr. Thomas, Ms. Weibelt, Dr. Wynn, Dr. Sullivan, for motivating me and giving me different challenges and pushing me towards this. And then finally, I'd like to thank you, Dr. Bingley, the board, Mr. Wilcoxon, and Dr. Mullins for presenting me this opportunity to take this next step.
Yeah, Mr. Thomas is really good at pushing you out there for a challenge. Hey, go do that. Yeah. Let me welcome also Jennifer Gonzalez and congratulate her on reclassification transfer from the position of guidance service professional at Edgewood Junior Senior High School to the position of assistant principal at Vieira High.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bingley, school board, and Principal Alba for giving me this opportunity. I'm very excited to be a Vieira Hawk. And thank you, Dr. Wynn and Mrs. Hall, for being mentors to me and supporting me. My husband, Jeremy, and my daughter, Lauren, are here tonight. My other daughter, Liliana, would have been screaming back here, so we left her home. But thank you for your support and your faith in me.
And next, Yolanda McGriff will assume the role of assistant principal also at Vieira High, effective July 1, and she will be leaving her position of ESE staffing specialist at the Central Area Office. Ms. McGriff.
Thank you, Dr. Bingley. Thank you, board. Thank you, Mr. Alba, for entrusting me, with this responsibility. Thank you to Jane Klein and Sherry Bowman for your continued support and encouragement. And although my family is not here with me, they're watching at home, and thanks to them for their support as well that allow me to pursue this career path. Thank you.
Next, congratulations go to Glenn Webb, who will be leaving his position as teacher at Central Middle School to assume the role of assistant principal at O'Galley High School effective July 1st.
Thank you, Dr. Bingley and the board, and to Mr. Solomon for the opportunity to continue the great tradition of servant leadership that we see here in Brevard County. I want to thank Dr. Mullins and Anna Diaz, Dr. Respis, Dr. Wynn, and Dr. Sullivan for all they taught me. I know that this is going to be a great time for me as I join Commodore Nation. Thank you.
Congratulations also go out to Lori Benjamin on her reclassification transfer from the position of magnet coordinator at Palm Bay High School to the position of assistant principal at Cocoa High School.
Thank you, Dr. Bingley and the board. I'm just very excited and honored to have this opportunity to be the assistant principal at Cocoa. Thank you for my Tiger family for being here to support me tonight, and thank you to Dr. Sullivan. I need to really thank Mr. Thomas for everything he did for me. He gave me many opportunities in the past 2 years, and without him, I would not be standing here today, and I'm very thankful. I would also like to thank Carrie Kupek for her amazing support through the world of being in Magnet. I've learned so many things, and it's been a journey. I'd also like to thank my parents, Denise and Jim Turney. They have helped me through everything I've been to. And I've also like to thank my children couldn't be here tonight. My son's playing for a district championship, so we hope he's going to win. And my daughter had to work, and that's important too. Thank you.
Next, congratulations to Darren DeGennaro, who will be leaving his position of ESE teacher at Kennedy Middle School to take on the role of assistant principal at Kennedy, also effective July 1.
I'd like to say thank you, Dr. Bingley, the board, Ms. Sherry Bowman, Ms. Jane Klein. I thank you for this opportunity. I look forward to continuing my career at Kennedy Middle School, but most of all, Richard Myers, I thank you for your guidance and support, and I look forward to what the year has to bring. Thank you.
Darren, you should be in radio. Yeah, that's New Voice Town right there, Ms. Irwin, right? Congratulations to Doreen Carlo Coriel for her reclassification transfer from the position of reading coach at Cocoa High to the position of assistant principal at Endeavor Elementary.
Thank you, Dr. Bangley and the board. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Mr. Wilson for his faith in me and confidence in appointing this position. Dr. Sullivan couldn't be here this evening, but for her leadership and guidance, I am very grateful. My family is here with me this evening. I have my mom and dad, my aunt and uncle, my daughter Selena, and my very supportive husband Roland. So thank you very much.
And finally, we want to congratulate Lauren Page Trossett for her reclassification transfer from the position of reading coach at Anderson Elementary to the position of assistant principal at Suntree.
Thank you, Dr. Bingley and the board. I'd also like to thank Mrs. Klein and Mrs. Bowman for their support as well. My husband Jason is here to support me tonight, and I've had many mentors along the way, but a special one is here with me tonight, Ms. Terry Kalaga from Rockledge High. I'm really looking forward to working with Ms. Giambetti and the Suntree team. Thank you for the opportunity.
Well, we'll have a go back for some family members since there's strength in numbers. Could I ask if you came in support of these awesome folks that have taken on this responsibility? Could you just stand so that maybe we could give you a round? And you know, I'm very intentional about that because tonight is just a symbol. It goes way beyond that. These folks are here because they have a passion to help children and help our schools be better. And those of us who walk it and live it know there is a price that you pay to do that and do it well. And you can't really do that without the love and the patience of people that are with them tonight. So on behalf of that mission, I want to say thank you for being here tonight, but for that love and patience that you're going to exhibit for a long time to come. And congratulations to all of you.
Okay, that brings us to recognition of visitors, guests, and staff. Oh, wait a minute, aren't you going to recognize our one retirement too? Doesn't want to be recognized? Well, shame on you, Jim. Okay.
Well, there goes that.
So, and even though I know you guys would love to stay for the whole meeting, I'm sure you have plans, so feel free to quietly exit.
I was kind of hoping that permission would come from the board chair there.
Yeah.
So,
But yeah, my feelings will not be hurt too badly. Of course, I am taking names up here. Quietly exit out the back, though. That brings us to recognition of visitors, guests, and staff. Dr. Bingley.
okay. There is, in fact,
Could you please exit quietly so we can continue our meeting?
I'll make it slow. There is one recognition item this evening. It's a lot of people. Hi, Mr. Langdor.
How are you?
You're ready, aren't you?
I'm ready.
Okay.
If the people at the back of the room could quietly exit, that would be real helpful. There we go. Yeah, I was going to say, I'm trying to use my teacher voice here.
And then celebrate like mad men and women when you're outside.
Yeah, otherwise I may make them all come back in.
There is one that'll go ahead. There is one recognition item this evening. Item B7 is to recognize the Office of Purchasing and Warehouse Services for receiving the 2015 Award for Excellence in Public Procurement. Mark Langdorf, Director of Risk Management, will facilitate. Mr. Langdorf?
Good evening, Dr. Bingley and members of the board. Judy Preston would love to be here, but unfortunately she was not able to make it this evening, so she asked me to do that. And this is absolutely my pleasure to do because we're dealing with a great department. Tonight I am very pleased to announce that the Office of Purchasing and Warehouse Services has earned the Florida Association of Public Procurement Officials, or FAPO 2015, an award of excellence in public procurement. The program places emphasis on continuous process improvement and outstanding purchasing practices. Earning this award of an agency procurement process and demonstration of the commitment and contributions of the public purchasing profession. This prestigious award is earned by only those organizations that demonstrate excellence by obtaining a high score based on a standardized criteria. The criteria are designed to measure innovation, organization, professionalism, source selection, productivity, e-procurement, process improvement, and leadership attributes of the procurement organization. The trophy was originally presented last Monday, May 18th, at FAPO's 48th Annual Conference and Trade Show in Orlando. As a point of interest, before we present this is the third year that our school district has won this award. We are one of only 17 agencies in Florida to receive the honor. The recipients this year, I think this is one of the more outstanding, is only 3 school districts in the state of Florida earned this award. 4 counties did, 7 cities, and 3 special districts and departments. The only other school districts that earned this are Orange County Public Schools and Volusia County. My sincere appreciation goes out to Ed, and I'm speaking for myself, as well as Judy Preston and his team for the exceptional job that they have done. Purchasing and warehouse service has truly distinguished themselves within the state, and this award is an accomplishment that they and us should cherish. I'd like the team members to come forward, and I'll present their names at this point. First, we'd like to recognize Mr. Ed Parker, the Director of Purchasing and Warehouse, followed by our Purchasing Manager, Don Richer. Our senior buyer is Catherine Walker. Our buyers are Denise Kane, Will Hensman, Amy Lewandowski, Amy Lucy, and Oksana Colon. Our purchasing specialists are Blake Stinson and Candy Cottle. The administrative secretary is April Terry. Our warehouse supervisor is Sandy Kimple. Our surplus specialist is Kyle Gotti. And if Dr. Bingley, if you'd come down and Ms. Nisi, I'd like to present.
We do have one presentation this evening, and it's going to be brief, but I'd like to actually tee it up a little bit. We, as the board and the community know, we have really had some great success in our energy management program, particularly our electricity, and going back to Herb Blauel, who retired last year, but who did a great job, and before he left, always said, if ever we could find somebody who had a real skill set that could look at our dashboard, engage in some real analyses, but then be able to use those analyses and go out and find what the anomalies tell us, that there were dollars there yet still we could save. And as you know, we are well below the state average and our local area average in kilowatt hour consumption. The problem we had was we could never afford to bring someone on board to try to prove that test. And that changed when I sit on the board of CareerSource Brevard, used to be Brevard Workforce Development Board, and heard about a Clean Energy Jobs Accelerator grant. And I said, well, if that's the case, if there would be somebody that CareerSource Brevard and their connection would have that might fit that bill, perhaps we could bring that person on board with that grant and allow them to see if they can make the kind of difference that would allow that person to transition into then a full-time job and continue to save money for the school district, indeed for the taxpayers. So with us tonight, I'm very pleased, and I extended an invitation, and Lisa Rice, president of CareerSource Brevard, came here this evening, and I would like to turn it over to her first, and she can bring the perspective from CareerSource Brevard, and then I would like Dane Theodore to follow that and kind of bring it home as to how all this came together in a way that we think is a real win-win-win for this district and this community.
Thank you, Superintendent Bingley, and thank you, Board, for also stepping out on this, because I know that was kind of a little bit of a thing where it was like, ooh, you know, we've never done something like this. But our program that we have with the Clean Energy Jobs Accelerator Grant is exactly what you needed right at the time that you needed it. And really what it provided to you was an employee who many people think, wow, you know, do they really have at CareerSource Brevard the kind of technical and professional expertise we need? Obviously, you're going to hear some things from Dane. We do. It's not just people who, you know, sometimes you think they don't have a high school diploma or something. We actually have many more people who have bachelor's degrees and master's degrees within the pool of candidates as job seekers. So we were thrilled to be able to look through that pool, find the person, be able to get them attached with you guys, and pay their salary while they were coming in here doing a work experience, doing an on-the-job training time. And we all knew going in, you know, if we can do this right, they're going to be able to secure their job because they're going to have found you more than just their salary's worth of savings. I'm thrilled that it worked with you guys. It also opened the door for us to work on some other opportunities with some other on-the-job training types of positions. We're just excited to be able to keep on with that relationship. And it's something that we do not just for the school board, we do it with the county, we do it with municipalities, we do this with cities right now, and we're just thrilled that it's working so well here. Loved the write-up that you guys got in Florida today. When I read that, I was like, "Ooh, that was so hot," you know, seeing all the savings. So thank you for partnering with us once again.
Good evening. My voice is a little, I think it's from shaking hands at the graduations myself, but I was thrilled to do it. Dr. Bingley asked me to give a few specifics, but before I begin, I want to personally thank Ms. Rice and Don Lusk, our primary contact with CareerSource Brevard, for making this win-win-win-win, 4 wins, situation possible. Board members, as you're aware, the Energy Conservation Department has delivered millions of dollars in annual savings to help fund educational programs during difficult financial times. I'm going to put a quick chart up here. I have 2 slides that I do want to show you. This chart, you've seen it before. It gives, as Dr. Bingley said, a comparison of Brevard energy consumption in the blue versus the state average in green and our 5 neighboring districts in red. As you can see, there's no low-hanging fruit left. Any further gains required a new strategy. So as Dr. Bingley said, Herb Lowell, the recently retired manager of the Energy Conservation Department, said that he believed we could save another $1 million by implementing an energy dashboard. This dashboard would allow us to look at energy use and demand, which is a very strong component of the cost of our energy in real time and analyze trends to identify potential savings. The problem was that while there were capital funds available to purchase a dashboard as a trial at several of our highest energy use schools, we didn't have the manpower available to utilize the dashboard to look for opportunities. And I want to clarify that we have some very talented and hardworking staff up in our HVAC controls office, but their job is to keep the equipment running and our customers comfortable. It's more than a full-time job for them. They simply don't have the time and opportunity to look for savings. So the catch-22 was that we couldn't hire somebody to use the dashboard to prove that we could have savings, and we couldn't prove that we would have savings unless we hired somebody. So that was a pretty frustrating position to be in. So enter CareerSource Brevard with a two-step solution. Step one was to agree to combine a program to offer funding for 6 months of training for this position, which gave us enough time to prove that we could have those savings. And step two was to find Tom Hahn for us. So Tom, I'm going to ask you to stand up. Look at that. That is a smart guy. And the gentleman standing next, or sitting next to him, stand up, Denny. That's Denny Bowers. He's the new Herb Lowell, our energy manager, and does a great job. So together, they're coming up with a strategy to help save money. So after a great deal of coordination between facilities and HR, thank you, Deborah, and CareerSource Brevard, an agreement was approved by the school board on January 21st, and Tom started the next day. Although our dashboard wasn't complete at that time, he began looking at our standard HVAC control systems, the things that the other guys didn't have time to do, and quickly identified several anomalies that could be causing excess energy use. In fact, several dozen at one of the schools. So there are opportunities there that we knew existed. Tom has found them, and we started to implement them. Once the dashboard was active, he began running analyses such as the one now on your screen, if I can get that up. And now, I'm not going to get technical about this. I just wanted to show you a screenshot. But basically, what this is showing is an abnormally small temperature difference between the supply chilled water and the return chilled water. And I know your eyes are glazing over, but basically, by running these analyses over a couple of days, what it tells us is that the temperature difference isn't where it should be, and therefore in other words, the water's going out cold and coming back not warm enough. We're not utilizing that chiller or the equipment that it delivers that chilled water to efficiently and effectively, so we're wasting energy. That's an opportunity for savings. And we're going in, Tom is going in and identifying those kinds of things and going in and starting to correct them. Since the equipment is operating well, our customers are happy, and those are things you typically wouldn't find unless you're specifically looking for them with some tools to analyze it. The bottom line is, in the 4 months that Tom has been with us, he's identified enough correctable anomalies with related savings calculations that we were confident enough to reduce the energy budget for the next fiscal year by $150,000 to fund a permanent position for less than half that. The position is included in the facilities reorganization plan before you on the agenda tonight. If the position is approved, I fully expect that our energy savings will increase each year as a result of this position. When I thank CareerSource Brevard, I mentioned a win-win-win-win situation. The winners in this partnership are Tom Hahn, who wanted to continue to use his expertise after leaving the Space Center. Did I tell you he was a pretty smart guy? And we're lucky to have him with us. CareerSource Brevard, whose mission is to find jobs for people exactly like Tom. The school district, who will continue to find more ways to put more funds into education through increased efficiencies. And finally, the taxpayers, who can be confident that their tax dollars are being used effectively and efficiently. Thank you.
Questions from board members? Mr. Craig? Ms. Henderson?
I just want to say that this is the kind of opportunity that is just so great for, as you said, a 4-win situation. Congratulations for helping us out. Congratulations to Career Brevard for helping us. and Dane for, bringing this all together, because I think this is exactly what the district needs, and I'm very, very pleased to see the savings that we're making.
Okay, Mr. Craig?
I'd add the same thing. Thinking outside the box is awesome, and CareerSource, thank you very much, Ms. Rice. It's fantastic. It's great having you as a partner both in the public and private sector, so thank you for all you do there. This is awesome. My question, and it really isn't to you because I think you answered it, Nate, was how you're how the realized savings are being defined. Is it off of projected usage, or is it off of a budget that you've already approved or asked for? Because when we talk about percentages and how much we're actually saving, sometimes it gets a little muddied as to exactly where you're calculating that savings from. And I think you answered it, but can you tell us that
Sure.
one more time?
It's a two-part answer. One, as Tom identifies anomalies, he calculates what the savings would be if we corrected that anomaly. In other words, if we, for instance, correct this low temperature differential, it's very easily calculatable how much energy we're going to save in the future. So as he's identified anomalies and made calculations on how much would be saved, for instance, if we don't run the heater and the chiller at the same time, as happens in a couple of schools through some programming issues, those are pretty easily calculable, correct? And so he's identified those. We believe, with a little extrapolation, that we can then save about $150,000 next year. What we do each spring is to calculate not only the year end, where we're going to be about 3 months in advance, so we have a fund balance. In other words, we're going to be over or under our annual budget. This year we're going to be under. And then we calculate what next year's budget should be and give that to finance to put in next year's budget. On that document, we identified a line item of $150,000 less than we would normally tell them to budget. So we are saying if this position is not funded, your budget should be X. If it is funded, we believe that we can get it down to X minus $150,000. Okay?
Awesome, thanks.
Anybody else? Thank you, Dane.
Ms. Rice, thank you for being with us tonight. We really appreciate it.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, thanks. Okay, we're now at the public comment portion of the agenda. The maximum allotted time for each speaker is 3 minutes. Clarification of information presented and answers to questions specific to district business and educational matters will be posted on the school board's website under the section called For the Record. Please be reminded that profane, abusive, or slanderous speech is not permitted. I request that you speak into the microphone and state your name. And when the red light goes off in front of me, your 3 minutes will be up. The first 3 speakers tonight are Daniel Waldesouza, Scott Waldesouza, and Kinley Nagel.
Hello, my name is Daniel Waldesouza, and I've been teaching in Brevard County since 2002. I want to thank the board for the opportunity to speak to you tonight. I last spoke to the board on October of 2014 with a similar message that I'm going to share tonight: equal protection. The Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution instructs that governments must treat all citizens equally under the law. This means that it's the board's best interest not to have a policy that allows for staff or students to be treated differently from one another just because of who they are. We hope that you believe this is true. Please consider adding sexual orientation and gender identity to the organization's non-discrimination notice. Discrimination is not over. With our current policy, it is still possible to terminate an employee, refuse an employee a promotion, or limit a student's activity because he or she is lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transgender. While your current policy provides protection against discrimination for a myriad of categories such as age, gender, national origin, participation in political organizations, and marital status, the policy turns a blind eye to the LGBT community as similar protections for our community are omitted. Although no mandate yet exists, that does not prevent this board from acting on the issue. I believe in Brevard Public Schools, and I hope that you'll want to stand on the right side of history. From a risk management or legal position, the non-inclusive policy that exists opens the district up for more risk than the amendment to the non-discrimination policy would create. This board's duties is to ensure that one policy that protects all is implemented uniformly throughout its schools. Some of you have indicated that the current policy is sufficient in email correspondence to our group. I will remind you that many policies throughout history were once considered sufficient, and now in retrospect they are considered archaic and discriminatory. The public supports this effort. Employment non-discrimination laws on the basis of sexual orientation have an overwhelming public support, with every Gallup poll since 2001 showing public support in excess of 85%. Businesses support our effort. 99% of the Fortune 500 companies prohibit discrimination based on sexual orientation, and 84% of those companies include gender identity in that protection. Over 15 public school districts have already included sexual orientation and gender identity protections. I would call on Brevard to join these districts, ensuring equality for all. I will leave you with one question this evening. If our mission is to serve every student with excellence as the standard, what reasons could you possibly have against the addition of sexual orientation and gender identity to our non-discrimination notice? I thank the board for your time tonight.
Hello, my name is Scott Waldesouza. I am a product of Brevard County School Systems. I'm also a local real estate agent and have been in the business around here since I was about 7 years old. So I've watched this thing grow from the beginning. I also have been recognized this past year as one of the #1 gay real estate agents in Brevard County. And the reason I get that is because I do a ton of relocations from out of the area to this area with the gay and lesbian community, transgender community as well. It is a disappointment every time I have to answer the question, what does the Brevard local public school system have in place for our students and our children? They're looking at it from a point of view as parents, same-sex couples, sending their child to school and having them discriminated against or bullied, or as much as we'd like to think that it doesn't happen, the occasional hearing in the back how gay this situation is or how inappropriate or whatever the argument wants to be from a particular not so pleased community in some cases. One thing I would like to point out is that we have been requesting this to be on the docket and to be brought up many, many times, and I really appreciate Ms. Belford for bringing it up in Florida today and getting it kind of out into discussion. Unfortunately, it had to come from a school board member to get that on there instead of from one of the people and the citizens in our community. I do hope that Brevard will be on the right side of history with this. It is not asking for much. We're asking for 7 words added to your non-discrimination policy. I wish that I could get the board, the elected officials, to make a decision on this and not leave it up to the legal counsel that may or may not be on top of the game in that particular arena. I'd be more than happy to introduce you to 100 lawyers in Brevard County, throughout the state, that are more than willing to stand up behind this and say, what we have is not, at this point, sufficient any longer. It is not excellence as a standard. And that is what we expect of our Brevard County school system. And I really appreciate your time. And by the way, I just have to thank everyone for coming out tonight in support of this. And had we had a little more notice, I guarantee you I could fill this room. It is that important to our community and to our businesses in Brevard County. So thank you very much.
Hello. I'm Kinley Nagel, certified special ed teacher, and I come here, as always, I'm here to start honest communication regarding the real cause of learning disabilities. I want to educate people. I want the school board to hire me. Our children are terrified. They're not stupid. When adults bully adults, it leads to anxiety, fear. Our children become distracted. That leads to mental illness and violence, learning disabilities. I can turn these failing schools around and our failing children with honest communication that's starting here. Don't shut me down. Don't shut our children down. This information has to be shared. People need to be educated. Our society is causing the learning disabilities. Our children are terrified. Instinctually, they know. There are experts out there who support my work. Do not shut me down. I am here. I bring strength, hope, and courage. There is such potential. We must stop labeling our children ADHD, bipolar, dyslexic, autistic. What happens? We have children who shake and rock like scared animals. Our children can no longer make eye contact because they do not trust. Words have no truth to them, so they don't speak to us. I mean, it's not that complicated. Let's be honest. Let's be honest. And let it start here. And don't shut me down. Let's pass this on. I went to Canada. I was called a troublemaker, the immigration officer. What did I know? I'm a wife, a teacher. I was an innocent child. Trouble found me when I was very young. Let's define trouble. What is trouble? Helping our children? Wanting to better our children? Speaking the truth? I'm not here to point fingers. I'm here to educate people, like all of you. I know you want our children to have the best. We have to start taking responsibility as adults. Our children emotionally are terrified because of our society. I'm not blaming the schools. I'm not blaming parents. It's bigger than that. It's our society. Let's get real. Trouble found me, but here I stand bringing strength, hope, and courage. Stick with the winners. Oppression and persecution end badly. History always repeats itself. Let's pass on the good. Let's love our children with all their strength, not just for their weakness. Must take action. Hire me. Thank you.
Okay, the next three speakers, Darcy Addo, Sammy Addo, and Dan Bennett. Yeah, you can't come. You gotta. I have a feeling these two are related.
Bay County Superintendent made a decision in early May to base promotion decisions of third graders based on, quote, his or her ability to achieve proficiency in fourth grade. District communication of that decision explained the promotion as being based on several factors, listing the first factor being student course grades. They also list student portfolios, while clearly defining portfolios as, quote, classroom assessment and work samples, a significantly different use of the word portfolio than what our Brevard County, our Brevard County third graders experience, which is a collection of cold reads and 40 to 60-minute tests several times a week. Bay County's decision to put students first is not revolutionary or groundbreaking at all. It's consistent with state law, which allows promotion of third graders using report cards. That law reads in part, documentation shall be submitted that indicates that promotion is appropriate and is based upon the student's academic record. In order to minimize paperwork requirements, such documentation shall consist only of report card or student portfolio. This language is identical to the language on page 40 of Committee Substitute for House Bill 7069, which is now the Education Accountability Act, and it's identical to the 2014 Florida statute. It's also identical to the language in the Procedures for Good Cause exemption to third grade retention found on page 14 of the Florida DOE Course Code Directory. For your convenience, I've provided you all with copies of that. Quoting from Panama City News Herald, Bay District district school officials recognize the stress of the delay of FSA scores and the stress that that places on students, teachers, and staff. Our goal is to do what is both fair and equitable for students. That's an interesting idea to me, doing what's fair and equitable to students, not sending A, B, and C third graders to summer school, not threatening retention and making students and parents wait on bated breath through summer, wondering what happens next to my 8 and 9-year-old child. In the interest of fairness to the teachers, students, and parents of Brevard County, it seems only reasonable that this board and our superintendent would also use the statutory language to do what is right for our children and for their parents, many of whom are paying close attention to what is happening and also becoming education voters. Thank you.
Michelle, is there a stool for him? Oh, not a chair. Mark Langdorf will have a fit if he's on his chair.
I can see the paper. My name is Sam Yaddle. I am finishing 3rd grade at Port Malwar Elementary this week. Next year I will be in 4th grade, even though I did not take the math or the reading FSA. I also did not take any of the 3 fair tests this year. I did not take either of the Bell test, either of the 2 district math tests, the district science, or the district social studies tests. There are a lot of tests. Even though I did not take those tests, I took all the tests that Mrs. Kelly gave me about things she taught in our class. Those tests were how I proved what I learned. I did well, and that is why I'm going to 4th grade. My report card proves I did my job as a 3rd grader. Lots of people at school said I would have to stay back because I didn't take the FSA, but I knew they were wrong. I knew that my mom and dad wouldn't tell me to do something that would be bad for me. They always say that one test on one day does not prove anything about me. In 3rd grade this year, I learned so much that I wasn't worried about being held back. I learned more about celiac disease, and I won 2nd place in my school's science fair. I researched John Lewis, one of my civil rights heroes. I read the first 4 Harry Potter books and finished the Percy Jackson series. I learned how to calculate area and perimeter. There are lots more things I learned in 3rd grade, but the point is that my teacher taught and I learned. My report card proves it, not an FSA score. I can't wait for 4th grade to learn even more.
Say, Mr. Bennett, that's a tough act to follow.
That is a tough act to follow. I'm so proud of you coming up here and speaking. You know what? I have my master's degree. I have a career. I have a house. I have a family. I have a dog. I didn't take any of them tests either. Good for you. 2 quick questions for the board, trivia questions. I know you want to answer. I'll give you the answers here. What do Lafayette County and Suwannee County have in common, besides the fact that they're kind of tough to find on a map of Florida?
And hard to spell.
Right. Those are the only 2 counties in Florida where the average teacher has more experience than the average teacher in Brevard County. Other than those 2 counties, we have the most experienced teachers in the state of Florida. That's something to be proud of. That should make the people in the back row and the other people working in this building think that when something has to happen, you should get input from those experienced professionals that you have working for us. Next question, what are grade quick, Edline, PGPs, PLCs, CMAs, common assessments, district-required unit assessments? What do all those things have in common? Those were all initiatives that came out of this building, rolled downhill, and hit teachers hard. And teachers had to say, whoa, 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 why are we doing all this? And they called their union, and the union had to get involved and put all kinds of resistance into these things until they could be done right. Because they were rolled out universally, district-wide, little input from teachers. Oh, maybe there were a couple little focus groups of teachers here and there. But these initiatives were rolled out, hit teachers. We had to push back, and then we formed the committees, and then eventually we get to doing these things right. and I've talked about this before, it's not that bad ideas come out of this building, it's that ideas come out of this building, hit teachers without the proper rollout, training, preparation, input, and then once ideas get put into place, like the evaluation system is a great idea, once ideas get put into place, then there isn't feedback asked. Then we have to get involved. Then we have to fight to get things pushed back so that we can get it right, so that input from that experienced workforce finally makes it uphill, and then somehow we meet in the middle and get something done right. Now, what am I talking about? There's another initiative coming down, and we have to get it done right, because I'm already getting the calls to our office from teachers in school saying, what's this about lesson planning being completely redone for next year? Principals are telling us that next year lesson plans are going to be done in a completely new way. We're getting training during pre-planning, and it's going to be like nothing you've ever seen before. And we're getting those calls saying, BFT, hold the line on that. And sure enough, here I am at the bargaining table, and our paragraph in the contract about lesson planning, there's a proposal to rewrite the whole paragraph, change it all, and there's an expectation that we agree to it, that we ratify it. We haven't even seen it yet. And just my guess, based on past performance, my guess is that this is something that teachers are going to find out about and say, wait, hold on a second. Why is more stuff coming down the line? Where was our input? And so I'm going to ask you all to look into this, and let's just hold off on this. Before we change the way we do lesson plans in Brevard County, let's see some training. Let's practice it. Let's get feedback from teachers before we decide that we're going to completely change the way we do something, put it in a contract, and make it that way forever. Ask us for some feedback, because we'll give it to you. We know what we're doing. Thank you.
Okay, the next three speakers, Donna Arnister, Anthony Colucci, and Cindy Sweet.
Good evening, Board and Dr. Bingley. I'm here to talk to you about planning time. I was here about a month ago talking to you about the ideas that are coming out from and up to bargaining for changing and getting that 100 minutes in. And I'm just going to start with, oh yes, changing the day between semesters from discretionary time to a mandatory plan in your building day gives me more planning time, said no teacher ever. I spoke a month ago about the increased planning time ideas brought to the table on the board's behalf, most of which did not actually increase planning time, it just shuffled the time around. I cannot fathom who comes up with these ideas. The last idea that was presented by the board at the May 12th bargaining session called for making the day between semesters a mandatory on-campus planning day. I have to ask myself, does the person or group of people think teachers are at best ignorant or at worst stupid to think this increases our planning time? I was flabbergasted to hear your chief negotiator ask, and I'm paraphrasing because I watched the bargaining video from May 14th and the sound was off for the last 10 minutes of the session, but he asked something such as, how else do you expect us to get the extra planning time in? We still have 8 hours of planning, whether we plan at home or at school. A net increase of, wait for it, 0 minutes. Additionally, planning at home saves money for teachers with children, as planning at home does not require daycare costs. On behalf of teachers, I ask you to refrain from taking away our discretionary planning time. And then on another topic that came up when I was speaking with some teachers about the planning time issue was the short day planning. And I have a 22-year-old, so I don't have to worry about childcare costs. But if there is some way that we could allow for teachers to have their kids in and get the free daycare at school during that extra hour and a half on Wednesday, short days, if that does proceed forward, that would be very helpful for the teachers to have that cost covered. Thank you.
My name is Anthony Colucci. I'm a teacher at Oak Park and the political coordinator of BFT. As a teacher leader, I've been involved in professional development efforts in Brevard as well as at the state and national levels Tonight, I want to share some information about professional development. First off, I want to give credit to this board and your bargaining team for the tentative agreement that has been reached with BFT to provide a supplement of $260 per year to national board teachers to help defray the cost of certification and renewal. National board certification is often cited as the best professional development available, and there are more than 200 studies supporting the effectiveness of national board teachers. I'd also like to recognize Dr. Pace, who helped me set up a virtual network where our teachers can help support one another through the process. Professional development should be based on the andragogical model of learning, which is the art and science of teaching adults. Too often, professional development in Brevard is based on the pedagogical model of learning, which is the model used with children. Please consider what Malcolm Knowles, the father of andragogy, has to say about this. Adults have a self-concept of being responsible for their own decisions for their own lives. Once they've arrived at that self-concept, they develop a deep psychological need to be seen by others and treated by others as being capable of self-direction. They resent and resist situations in which they feel others are imposing their wills on them. This presents a serious problem in adult education. The minute adults walk into an activity labeled education, training, or anything synonymous, they hark back to their conditions in their previous school experience, put on their dunce hats of dependency, fold their arms, sit back, and say, "Teach me." Also, he says, adults come into educational activity with both a greater volume and a different quality of experience from that of youths. Greater emphasis in adult education is placed on individualization of teaching and learning strategies. At the bargaining table, this board has made a few offers that are in direct conflict with the andragogical model of learning, including mandatory undifferentiated professional development at school sites on early release days, refusing to provide teachers the choice to not participate in professional development when they feel their time can be better spent, forced collaboration as a form of professional development when teachers do not have enough time to get things done they're required to complete. Oddly enough, teachers are required to differentiate instruction for our students, but district professional development is not typically differentiated for teachers. Why are speech and language pathologists and occupational therapists sitting through professional development about math? Why do I rarely learn about gifted students when I teach nothing but gifted students? Teachers must complete 120 hours of professional development to renew their certifications. We are adults, we know what we need to do, and we will do it. We do not need to be forced to sit in professional development that we feel is not what we need. So as we head back to the table tomorrow, please make sure you've aligned your proposals to the best practices.
Your time is up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Cindy Sweet, Tamia Bacco, and Stephanie Connolly.
Good evening. Thank you for letting me speak to you all this evening. I am Cindy Sweet, and I live in Indialantic, Florida. I raised 2 boys here in Brevard County. They went all the way through the Brevard County school system. I'm here to speak about sexual orientation, gender identity being added to the non-discrimination policy for both employees and students. My concern really is the students being able to serve every student with excellence. I'm going to tell you a little short story. Picture a boy, a big boy, in 6th grade going to Indialantic Elementary School on a bus and hearing some boys in the back going, "Well, he's gay, you're gay," and throwing the whole gay term around and being derogatory and mean, and not saying it to the boy that's hearing it, but that boy going home and thinking, "I'm gay and I don't want to be like that. I don't want to be teased. I don't want to be bullied. I'm not going to be gay anymore." So instead of continuing with doing ribbons for speeches at school and Future Problem Solvers of America and Odyssey of the Mind, that kid just goes into the little dark closet until finally in 10th or 11th grade, suicide starts to come into the picture and they start trying to commit suicide. That needs to stop. We, as a group here, can stop that tonight. We can add this to the non-discrimination policy. This student I'm talking about was a gifted student, the type of kid that would read through the Bible trying to figure out if he was going to be okay. And that's not right. A smart kid or any kid shouldn't have to put themselves through that when you can solve the problem and probably prevent suicide just by adding that. Because they do. They sit there and they don't know what to do. They feel different. They're not different. They're just individuals like all of us. We need to reach out and change things, make them feel accepted, give them that protection so they know if they are being bullied because they are LGBT, that they can be protected by you, the school board. They need that. They deserve that. LGBT kids are 8 times more likely than straight kids to try to commit suicide or, God forbid, actually commit suicide. Bullying is bad. We need to stop it. I really appreciate your time. I'm president of PFLAG, Melbourne Space Coast. We've got a great group of people. I'm a PFLAG mom. And please help us get this on the agenda. Help us get it on your non-discrimination policy so that those kids that do read those things know they are protected as to serve every student with excellence, including them. Thank you very much.
Good evening. I'm Tamia Bacco. You would want to believe that a grade on a report card is a reflection of what the student has mastered that year. This is a quote from Ms. Van Meter at the last board meeting. She goes on to say, which also would be documented within a portfolio if that is required of that child. Confusing. So, if my child who is dyslexic has done well on her report card, but due to her disability cannot show that she has mastered the ELA standards with cold reads, which is what a portfolio contains, she would be retained. It was my understanding that we don't retain children due to their disabilities. Ms. Van Meter went on to say, these masterings of standards would be documented within the portfolio if that was required of that child. Who decided what child needed a portfolio? Common sense says, if my child is passing on her report card, why did she need the portfolio? My child has a C average on her report card until the teacher started giving cold reads. Then her average became a D. I asked her teacher what her grade would be without the portfolio work in the 3rd quarter. Her average was a C without those. So I asked the board, teachers, and administration, what is the report card a reflection of? If our teachers are teaching the standards, isn't that a reflection of them meeting the standards? And if it is not, then what are we doing? My daughter has an IEP, and I will fight to promote her to 4th grade. But what about the children who don't have IEPs or 504s, which may be passing on their report cards but not their portfolio? At the last board meeting, Mr. Craig asked, is it the law that the report cards can be a sole promoter of 4th grade? Ms. Van Meter replied, no. In my research, according to the Education Accountability Act, in order to minimize paperwork requirements, such as documentation shall consist only of the existing progress monitoring plan, individual education plan, or if applicable, report card or student portfolio. If my child only needed a report card and not a portfolio, which has only highlighted her disability, her self-esteem may not have been impacted so much this year. Shame on the adults who did not protect our children of Brevard County by doing their research, and an attorney who sat silent when what appears to me information was shared that was not accurate. I'm asking that our board tonight clarify this and make it right, promote our 3rd graders on report cards, and make sure next year there are guidelines and procedures in place when and if a portfolio is needed. Thank you.
Stephanie Connolly, Clayton Richardson, Michael Blunt, and Scott Hall, all our last speakers.
Good evening. My name is Stephanie Connolly, and I teach 5th grade at Discovery Elementary. And my purpose for speaking in this forum is to share my experiences with taking ownership of my professional growth through the videotaping instructional performances funded through Race to the Top grant monies. At the beginning of the 2013-2014 school year, Brevard's best teachers were presented with a challenge to share their expertise in the varying dimensions of the IPPES rubric. 36 teachers corralled here at ESF to form teams and collaborate with one another and to share their experiences. My dimension involved educational technology. Other groups were tasked with higher order thinking and questioning, differentiated instruction, and climate of inquiry. My team's mission, as we chose to accept it, was to videotape 3 lessons demonstrating students' mastery of content through the use of technology. And let me say that I have truly developed a respect for our directors and editors of our motion pictures because it was nerve-wracking, because I'm a perfectionist, and we were only given, our videotapes were only limited to 15 minutes. Aside from the most important reason of this journey, increasing student achievement, teachers were trusted with the responsibility to design engaging lessons and creating videos that our county now utilizes to help new teachers and veteran teachers understand the dimensions of the IPPES rubric. I myself learned new technologies from my colleagues within my group that I brought back to my classroom. Procured this iPad and also a digital camera that I still utilize to engage my students in education technology. The point of all of this being, teachers are lifelong learners and natural leaders. We know what we know, and we know what we don't know. And like our students, we need differentiated instruction, differentiated professional development to inspire us, to give our students what they deserve, our best. To conclude, although this process was extremely nerve-wracking, it reminded me that I love my job. Helping students achieve success. Please, as we move forward with rolling out with professional development, for designing standard-based lesson plans, we already have a pool of talent to help us achieve this goal. The willingness of Brevard Public School teachers to take ownership of their learning and challenge our students to aim high, do their best.
Clayton Richards.
Good evening, board members, Dr. Bingley. Thank you again for the opportunity to speak to you. My name is Clayton Richardson. I live in Satellite Beach. Most large corporations today have hiring policies that prohibit discrimination against LGBT people. And why is that? They want to recruit the best and brightest and have a diverse workforce. Brevard Public Schools may not be a corporation, but they are a major employer in this area. The public schools also play a major role in setting the tone for the community. Parents, teachers, and employers have a vested interest in retaining the best and brightest. Diversity and inclusion fuels a thriving local economy. Many young adults in Brevard look around and notice that other areas of Florida are more forward-looking. LGBT youth in particular are keenly aware that protections exist in school and workplace in Orlando, Tampa, St. Pete, South Florida, and other areas, but not here. Parents see their children, who love the Space Coast, go elsewhere for better opportunities, for an inclusive environment, and yes, even for personal safety. How many parents consider relocating to Brevard, but they wonder about the environment in the schools? We have parents, Brevard County staff members over here, students, business leaders, realtors. People come to us and they ask about that. You know, we can't answer it. There's nothing in the policy, and we are keenly aware of that. It may be that if you're in the right neighborhood with the right administrator and the right neighbors and the right teachers, Your kid will be fine. Brevard County is the place to be. But that's a lot of ifs. So, you know, you could clear up all that confusion. You could send a clear message and answer all of these concerns by adding the words sexual orientation and gender identity. It's just 4 words. Please add the words now. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Michael Bloom. I've lived in Brevard County for the past 10 years. I'm an employee of Brevard County, and I'm also the owner of a small business here in Brevard. And I feel so strongly about this that tonight I closed my business to be here. I didn't grow up in Brevard. I didn't go to school in Brevard. I don't have a child in school here. I don't have any children at all. So you may ask why I'm here. I'm here to speak about the request to update the non-discrimination policy. I believe I have a unique perspective on this for 3 reasons. First of all, I was the first out LGBT student at my high school 32 years ago. I lived this. I lived what these kids are going through every day. I'm also a founding member and a present board member of PFLAG Melbourne. I hear the stories of many of the LGBT parents and their children. Many of these children are present or past students of Brevard Public Schools. I also volunteer as a court-appointed advocate for children who are abused, neglected, and abandoned. And I hear their stories too. These children have been bullied in Brevard Public Schools as well. Every one of these children whose stories I've heard have been bullied at some time or another in Brevard Public Schools. It doesn't matter what their orientation is. They've all been or have the possibility to be bullied for being LGBT. It's not just the LGBT students that this will protect. It will protect every student. Anyone with a Facebook page sees the stories of children who have been bullied and the tragic endings that sometimes they have. I've followed many of these cases, and they've been resolved in one of 3 ways. The school responds and addresses the bullying. The child dies or is injured by their own hands or the hands of their bully. Or a lawsuit is brought by the student or the parent. I want to ask you to think carefully about the request for the update of the non-discrimination policy. The education of the children are at stake. The lives of the children are at stake. The safety of our children is at stake. Do we want to be known here in Brevard as a school where a child had to die for change to happen, where a lawsuit had to make the change happen? Or do we want to be known as a progressive and proactive school where, as it reads on the sign behind you, our mission is to serve every student with excellence as a standard? Doesn't that excellence include a safe learning environment for every student? Thank you.
Okay. And our last speaker, Scott Hall.
Good evening. I'd like to thank the board, and I'd like to especially thank Ms. Belford for bringing this up. I'm a native. I was born and raised in Rockledge. I've lived here most of my whole life. And I'm also an expert on the LGBT community rights. I've been fighting for LGBT rights for over 30 years. And my best friend led, he was also my roommate, led the gay movement in Washington, D.C. He led the first gay march on Washington. I also want to thank Jim McKnight for making Rockledge the first city to include LGBT rights and its protections. Did you know that do you guys know that there was one gay murder every 9 days and one LGBT attack every 6 hours in America? I have a question. Does everyone have a piece of paper and will they indulge me in this question? There's no right or wrong answer, but I think it's an important question on this subject. So if you just take a moment, I'm going to ask the question, write down your 1 or 2 word answer, and if you'd like to share that with us at the end, if that's appropriate, I don't know if you could do that, that'd be great. My question is, because this is the problem that we're dealing with, is what is hate? So if you take a moment to write your 1 or 2 word definition down of is what is your definition of hate? For me, hate is poison, and those who teach it are poisonous and need to be held accountable for their actions. The same hate that killed Martin Luther King is the same hate that killed Matthew Shepard, and it's the same hate that killed our fellow Americans in 9/11. And we need to take time and realize that, and we need to address the problem, and that is the teaching of hate in our community. And we need to address that by protecting the kids who are the most vulnerable. My nephew is a fireman. He's a lieutenant here in Brevard County. And he goes into emergencies every day, and he doesn't discriminate on who he helps, nor should we allow discrimination among who we teach. So these 4 words that seem so innocent and maybe not as important to some can save lives, and these are the lives of LGBT kids. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with the story of Ryan Skipper. Please raise your hand if you know who Ryan Skipper is. My friends over there. Ryan Skipper was a person who was a student who was going to school in Central Florida, and he was brutally murdered for being gay. They stabbed him in the back, slit his throats, and then went around town bragging in the car they stole from him on how they killed the gay person. So remember that there was 1 LGBT murder every 9 days in America and 1 LGBT hate crime.
I'm sorry, sir, your time is up.
Every 6 days. Thank you for your time, guys.
The board wishes to thank this evening's speakers. Your willingness to speak to the board is appreciated. This is a time that the board's going to comment a little bit about our speakers tonight. One comment I'm going to make before turning it over, because I know a couple of you have some comments to make. There seems to be some confusion about the policies that you're referring to tonight. The 2 policies that you're commenting tonight on are employee policies, not student policies. So when we talk about that tonight, they are a 3,000 policy and a 4,000 policy. And if you look under board policies, those are employee policies, not student policies. And we're going to be talking about that under board discussions. But just so that you're aware, the discrimination policies are staff-related, not student-related. What you're referring to in terms of bullying falls under student policies, which is student policies are 5,000 policies. They go by number. And so there is a section with that. There's a whole bullying section. So I see you shaking your heads. But there is one thing I do know sitting up here, and that is board policies. So we do need to have a discussion later tonight about the policies, but what you're referring to is employee policies, not student policies. So even if we were to make those changes, those have nothing to do with student policies, but we will be talking about that later tonight. Let me turn it over. I know Dr. Bingley, you have some things you want to say. I don't know about other board members. Well, I know we wanted to refer about the 3rd grade retention. What?
Okay. I was just going to ask you to share the information that you shared with me earlier.
Yeah, and you know, the board, I shared with all board members all the language in the statute, not only the ones that's been cited, you know, the paragraph here, but all the citations prior to that. We have repeatedly sought that insight from the Department of Ed and had a conference call with them actually at 4:30 this afternoon. And actually there's some disagreement and agreement here. First of all, disagreement is as far as our reading of it and what the DOE said is that as it relates to the bottom quintile, or what students that used to be level 1, that it can't be just a report card alone, but it could be report card in conjunction with other documentation that a teacher has that says, okay, despite the score on that day, at that moment, here are things that show that this child, we believe, does have the skill set and the ability to go on to 4th grade. Now, here's where the agreement is. We, and Lynn, you've said repeatedly, this shouldn't be about cold reading or made-up tests. And I told the Department of Ed, look, I want our teachers to be able to have authentic things they've done with students throughout all the days that they have them, and be able to bring those forward, make a decision with the principal, and in conjunction with a parent, that this documentation validates why I provided this grade on the report card, and allow a teacher and a principal to make those good decisions about promotion in the 4th grade, no matter what the test score says. So I know you may not believe, but there is agreement on that it doesn't have to necessarily be as prescriptive as what the original portfolio language is. And I will say to you that the chancellor validated we are able to make that determination. But where we all agree is that it should be authentic. It should be things that they're just doing as part of teaching the standards. And so, that's where we are with it. Now, in our progression plan, we have it identified, you approved it, and it basically aligns with the 7 criteria in the statutory language about good cause exemption. And that's what it is, good cause exemption, if a child is in level 1 or in this year, bottom quintile. But what we did establish with the Department of Ed is that this board and this school district could allow teachers and principals to have appropriate documentation in conjunction with the report card and make a good decision to promote children into the 4th grade. And that's really where we should be. Let's not forget, we've always had report cards. The title on this legislation is Elimination of Social Promotion. Now, in the communication that I gave you as a board, I admitted to you, I put that in quotation marks, because I've never bought into the fact that if a teacher has a report card that says a student it has the skill set to move on to the next grade level, that's social promotion. But the reality is we have to have enable teachers to have documentation related to the grade on the report card, not just I have a report card, I gave a grade. That's really where the DOE kind of left it with us at 4:30 this afternoon. And I don't think there's teachers in this county that can't bring forward evidence of the work they've done with children that shows that they have those skills. I don't think it's unfair to ask that, and I think they have it, because I think they're professional educators that have created it. But it should not, Lynn, do you want to speak to this? We should not be creating, it should be authentic, the things that we are doing day in, day out. Now, Lynn will be the first to admit that some haven't seen it that way, but that's the message that we've tried to consistently provide, even back when the portfolio was in place and we tried to dramatically simplify it and make it authentic.
You're exactly right. There are rules around the portfolio, and the very first rule is that it should be selected by the teacher. And so the teacher gets to select what's in that portfolio. But there also needs to be, according to state board rule, 3 different pieces of documentation for each standard, and the standards are clustered. And they give the length of passage it's supposed to be, 60% literary, 40% informational. It is very prescriptive. What the DOE has also done is they provided a series of assessments to give. That's not our expectation that they give the assessments, but many teachers do resort to assessments. And when I share them, I said, this is with principals and assistant principals, this is Plan B. Have your teachers make selections based on what they're doing in the classroom, and then if they need further evidence, you can resort to these, but that is your last resort. And in some places, it looks like they've just continued to give these assessments to try to build that portfolio. When I hear about it, I make the call and I have a conversation with them and remind them that it's a teacher choice, but I don't necessarily hear about all of those things.
In the end, the board can decide if they want to just say report card and that's it. But I do believe we should work hard to try to, make this as authentic, but yet have the documentation that is not milk crates, but that has work samples that kids have done that say, I can share this with a parent, I can share this with a principal, we, the three of us, can make this decision, and if it's the right decision to promote a child, which we've been doing for years, by the way, then let's do it. And I just think that's what will happen.
I spent some time last week talking to Dr. Spadaccini about this, because I did also hear, I have a friend who's an elementary teacher who said to me, I've got to spend all weekend doing these portfolios. I'm like, what are you doing? And so I think that there is, in some schools, it seems to be from the top down. So although she's saying teachers don't have to do the prescriptive tests or assessments that are in there, there are some schools that are, it seems as though there are some schools that there are principals that are requiring them to do that. But in talking to Dr. Spadaccini, correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, one of the things that you said is if they don't understand, if a student doesn't understand the standards, you could actually have a conversation with the student as long as you documented it. They may not have gotten it right, they may have flubbed the test, but a simple conversation would tell you whether or not they knew
There's
something.
lots of ways to assess, and it doesn't always have to be a test. That's exactly right, Mrs. Henderson. That's exactly what I said. It can be a conversation. We've got to do a better job, clearly, about communicating on this report card. And I spoke with Mrs. Van Meter, and I said, I spoke with a couple of my staff, and I said, we've got to put a video or something together to put directly out to teachers, because I'm not sure necessarily that all the information is trickling to the teacher, so we need to make sure that that happens.
I think that when that does happen, that will have much more clarity and, conciseness of what teachers are doing.
And flexibility for them to use other kinds of things that they do in the
And
classroom.
if they need
regularly.
to do an assessment, they need to do an assessment. But like you said, that is the last resort. There are many other things that they should be using. So I just think that there's some confusion on what a portfolio is, because, you talk to some parents and they'll say, oh, it's every Friday we have to do a portfolio thing, or my kid's given a test, in order to do this. And I don't think that's what we as a district really want them to be doing.
But it's happening.
But it could
know
be
it's
happening. And so that's where we need to fix that, I think.
I would agree. I too had a conversation last week where I was speaking to a reading coach that was telling me that she was so frustrated because she's been trying to work with all the third grade teachers to get their portfolios together, and the document that they're looking at and the document that she's looking at are completely different as to what's supposed to be included in the portfolio, and one's on the SharePoint and she doesn't know where the other document came from and she doesn't know which one's right, and so I agree, and that's a conversation that we have had as a board, that we truly, and I'm not pointing any fingers at you, but we truly need to do a better job on communicating and getting that information out to the teachers. My fear is that until we do that, we have a lot of kids doing a lot of work that's taking them off task from what they would typically be doing in the classroom. We have a lot of teachers that are spending a lot of time either administering assessments or running around like chickens with their head cut off trying to gather this information that they think is in the portfolio. I would like for us as a board tonight to say, you know what? The DOE has given us the latitude to not have to follow those 7 things that are in the student progression plan or that are written into law, and that we will require our teachers for low-performing students to be able to justify the grade that they have given them on the report card with a discussion with the principal and with evidence to back it up, but we're going to leave that evidence up to them. Because I think that would really go a long way in making sure that until we're all on the same page, it's kind of like the validity of the FSA. What good does the portfolio do if everybody's working off of something different? And so I think only because we are at this point in the year and there's so much question, I would really love to be able to put our trust in our educators and our administrators to be able to confidently say to us, this child should be promoted and here's why. But take away the hoops.
May I add something? I heard exactly what you're saying. We need to be careful about taking away all 7 of the good cause exemptions, because some of them have to do with ESE students that have already had a retention. They may not have great grades on a report card, or it may be a grade where the student is marked below grade level. So we would still want the teachers to be able to access that good cause exemption and allow the student to move on to 4th grade.
And a
So-
student can demonstrate on SAT 10 or other assessments, and then
Stanford
we're not
10.
dealing with any of this. So
Yeah.
you don't really want to take all those away.
Maybe the portfolio one you want to discuss, but the other ones are still really good to have in place because they're going to help some of our students. Mhm.
And yes, I would agree with that, because I look at this as Ms. Edo provided this for us, and I quickly drew a flow chart because that's how I think. So one thing is not, you can't skip a step in the flow chart. You can't, this is an if-then statement, right? So it takes us from the law, which then leads us into the good cause exemption, which has those 7 items. The report card can't jump into that discussion because that is a if-then from one of those actual good cause exemptions. So I think, you just can't do that. The law is written that way for that specific reason. The report card actually flows only to the 2, to only the 1 good cause exemption that I think we're discussing, right?
Portfolio one.
Oh, I'm sorry, no, it doesn't. It does not include the portfolio, right? The report card is for the ones that do not include the PMP or the IEP, which could be the intensive remediation folks, right? Which is, I think, where that report card is actually goes to, at least in my diagram, because the bullet that we're talking about, which is the portfolio, is very specific that it will be through a student portfolio. Right? It doesn't say student portfolio and then, that can be replaced by a report card. It says through a student portfolio. The report card, in my reading of all this and drawing my flow chart, actually goes to one of the other ones. So I agree with exactly what I think you just said. We look at the portfolio one as the one that we can look at specifically because we can't take away the other ones. You're exactly right. We have ESE students, we have LEPs, IEPs, 504s, intensive remediation. We can't just ignore that because that wouldn't be fair to those kids as well.
Not.
And I know a few of those pretty personally.
I know you do.
But from the portfolio standpoint, let's make sure that we have specific guidelines and a specific way to do it in a very streamlined fashion, but it can't be just a report card. It can't be. I just drew it, and I know you're going to argue, Ms. Addo, but that's the way the law is written. You handed me the piece of paper. So anyway, I would like to see us go down that road that Ms. Belford brought up and make sure that we have that specific, be very, very communicative to everyone that is involved so that we don't have those questions.
Okay.
One final thought as it relates to the authenticity of the work as opposed to something different. I remember when we were talking about critical thinking strategies in mathematics. We're going to stop doing math now and now we're going to do critical thinking strategies. And someone once said, that's like aerobics instruction for Sherpa guides. You know, we should be critically thinking while we're learning mathematics. And we should be having authentic assessment of variety of things that our teachers are doing. And they are doing it. So we just bring some of those things forward, and they serve as the documentation that Mr. Craig's talking about, that aligns with the report card. And I do believe, based on the conversation I had as of an hour and a half ago, we're going to be able to do that. And I push them to be able to do that. And I think that's where we need to be, and I think our teachers will be able to do that.
Anybody else?
I just want to clarify. I think I misspoke when I said the 7 items, but I think the gist of what I was saying got out there, and that is that with regard to the portfolio, I think we've been given the freedom by the DOE to not require 3 pieces of evidence to support every one of the standards within the 3rd grade curriculum, and that we can, as a board, say, as long as you all agree, can, as a board, say to our teachers, we need to be able to show that students who are not scoring well, who are level 1 or 2 or lowest, whatever they're calling it this year, those students that they would look at for retention, whatever the number is that they're throwing out, that those students can be promoted based on evidence supporting the grades on the report card. So we can't just go in and say they got to be in the class and so we're going to promote. We will expect the principals and the administrators to be able to say the student earned a B. This is why the student earned the B. It's based on things that they have done in class, not additional assessment, not putting together 5 binders of information, but this is why we feel like the student can move forward.
I'm good with that.
Thank you for ordering that very well. Thank you. Exactly what I meant.
Do you have any questions, Dr. Spadaccini?
No,
No?
I think I'm good. I think I know
Okay.
exactly what you want. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have one more comment on our public discussion.
You need to have your mic on though.
Oh, yeah. I just want to make sure it's okay that I...
It's all yours.
I just wanted to respond to a couple of the comments that were made by the public speakers. Scott, when you spoke, you said that it was unfortunate that this was coming from a school board member, and I have to let you know that it really is not coming from a school board member. The reason that this discussion was brought up for the board meeting tonight is because the community has spoken repeatedly about this policy. And so it's not that I woke up one day and said, this is something I really want to talk about. It's that I sat here and listened to you all say, we really need some clarity on this. And so that's why I requested that we have the opportunity to discuss it, because I feel that it's important that you all know that we are hearing you and that we want to respond to that. So I don't want you to think that you had nothing to do with it, because you did. You had a lot to do with it.
No, sorry. Sorry. No. Ms. Belford, go ahead.
Yes. And on that point, a couple of the comments and kind of following with making sure that we're talking about the correct policies. The discussion tonight is on the policies that are listed in the agenda. I do want to point out to you all, regardless of the outcome of our discussion tonight, I think it's important that we note that bullying is a whole nother issue and definitely something that we need to work on for all of our students, regardless of how they identify. Bullying is a major issue and something that we have to address as a district, as a community, individually. That's something completely different. And I certainly don't want you to think that any change in policy is going to protect students from being bullied because of a characteristic. Is it something we need to work on? Absolutely. We have to address that bullying. But I just want to make sure that we understand that putting words on paper isn't going to create the social change that we need to create to keep kids safe, regardless of what what words we put into that policy. It's something that we have to do additional work on beyond that. And I'm not saying that we're not going to include them necessarily. I'm just saying let's understand that we have to work collectively together to keep those kids safe, because as a school district, that is one of our major jobs, is to make sure that they're safe. So I just want to make sure that we keep that top of mind moving forward as well, that it can't just end at wording in a policy. Okay.
Okay. Yes, sir?
Sorry. Because this was handed out, I think it's important to bring it up, and I think it's a good, it's good for us. One of the items that one of the speakers gave was the letter from Palm Beach County to Governor Scott, which in essence asks for the FSAs not to be used for student grades, course requirements, graduation requirements, performance pay requirements, or issuance of school grades. What I'm hoping that was pointed out is that this is exactly what Brevard County asked for and pushed for 6 months ago when we met with the legislature, and we were successful in a portion of it. Certainly the performance pay and the school grades is something that we didn't win so far, but from a hold harmless to students thing, that was good. And so I'd just like to point out that, you know, this is just showing how Brevard County is leading. I mean, here's 6 months later, Palm Beach is writing what we put in our legislative plan and brought to our legislator, and that was included in much of the governor's call. So anyway, I think it's a good thing.
Okay. And yes, I do know there's other places that's listed. I'm talking from a policy perspective. As I said, we'll get more into it at the end. So just relax, I promise. Okay, that moves us into the consent agenda.
Thank you, Ms. Nisi. There are 29 agenda items under this category, 7 with prior information and 22 without prior information.
Does any board member wish to pull any items?
F37.
Okay, F37, which is the project management emergency, I can't read the rest of it, but. Okay, anybody else? Okay, so Pam, could you please move F37 to discussion, and I'll entertain a motion to accept the consent items with the exception of F37.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion was made to approve by Mr. Ziegler, seconded by Ms. Henderson. Any further discussion?
No, ma'am.
Please vote. And I see Mr. Theodore coming on down. Motion carries unanimously. You're on, Mr. Craig.
So, Mr. Theodore, I apologize. I didn't mean to just, call you, but I truly want to use this as a learning experience for all of us, because this is, I think, is the first time that I've seen on an agenda where we've moved an item forward on our priority list, and I'd like to, if you can walk us through how this process works. This is really for our edification, and I want it to be in a public forum so we understand how both you're doing it and how the ICOC is involved in either the pre-authorization of that or when they get involved. I just think it's important that we continue to socialize that, because I'm not really confident, and this is the first time I saw it, so I didn't mean to just surprise you.
Well, and there was also a social media post going around stating how it was interesting how an item that was rated something, like an item was rated at a lower rating, all of a sudden went to a higher rating, and what the mystery was behind it. So, yeah, it's probably good that you're doing this tonight.
Well, excuse me, I'm going to give you a general answer, and then I'm going to have Sue Han come up and give you a detailed answer with a better voice. But generally, you're going to have two situations where we are going to be asking the ICOC to conceptually agree that an item should be moved up from our if you recall, it was a generalized priority list. We had a matrix, weighted priorities, and we came up with a preliminary generalized methodology to approach a prioritization. We're following that to a great extent, but you're going to have two instances where we will be coming and asking for something to be moved up from what appears to be a lower priority. One, this particular instance, a chiller has failed. We are limping along. For instance, at Atlantis, we have a temporary chiller there so that we can maintain temperatures at the school. We need to replace the Sherwood chiller. It is limping along. We can get by for a little bit without a temporary chiller. Is that a correct statement? But it does need to be replaced this summer. So as an emergency purchase order, we've ordered a new chiller. We will install that chiller this summer, or very quickly after school starts, but as quickly as we can. So we have made the decision. It isn't a decision. It isn't a decision of informing the ICOC before we do that. We have made the decision. We are going to then say it does qualify for a sales tax funding. We are moving it up the priority list, and is there any conceivable objection to that process? So that's an emergency item. The projects, as they were listed, on that matrix, gave great weight to projects, mostly HVAC, that were already in progress, or we had planned to do them, whether or not the sales tax was implemented as funding became available. So we gave a great deal of weight to those, and those have risen to the top. As Sue tries to approach the management aspects of this sales tax and the project management capacity that she has, they may sometimes say that it makes more sense to do a portion of a lower ranked project rather than the whole thing. You'll see as we bring these items before you that we're aggregating almost everything in many cases at a school to try to do the majority of the work, the sales tax work, as an aggregate project at some of those higher ranked schools. So there will be times when we take a portion, a small portion, that's let's say about to fail. We know it's going to fail, and prior to it failing, we'll ask for it to be put to the top or near the top of the list. So, Sue, is there anything specific that you'd like to mention there?
Good evening. I just want to comment a little bit about the facility assessments were done more than a year ago, and so time has gone on. And our folks at the time did a very good job in a very short amount of time, very little data, looking at our mechanical systems, which are complicated and old. And so as time has proceeded, we are finding things that are failing or that are failing faster than we might have anticipated. And so what you're seeing tonight is a result of the project management team working very closely with the operations and maintenance team. So we get together with our operations folks, and they are giving us a list of what is failed, what is failing, and we're trying to reconcile that with our sales tax project list and to pursue these projects in a manner that makes sense. And so if we have a failed item such as the chiller, we are going to move forward. We have to replace it, whether it's sales tax or some other funding source. We really have no choice. But we want to make the board and the ICOC aware of these circumstances. And this is exactly what we'll be reporting to the ICOC as to why we're adjusting the schedule and why we're taking components out of sequence when it makes sense to do so. And also why we're requesting sales tax funding in some cases for something that maybe wasn't even on the list at all, but is certainly well within the parameters of the sales tax funding as it was presented to the voters. Did I answer your question, Mr. Craig?
I think so. Does that communication happen, like, I mean, I know this is emergency stuff and I'm well aware, but I'm just curious how the process works. Do you reach out to the ICOC? Do you inform them immediately, hey, this is going before the board, we have to get this done?
Their charter required quarterly meetings, and when we met with the ICOC, we talked about meeting every other month because we did feel like we were going to have these circumstances come up pretty regularly. In the case of the Atlantis chiller, we knew that that was happening before the April meeting, so we talked about it at the April meeting. This chiller at Sherwood, we'll be talking to them about it at the June meeting. I have not specifically sent them, we're going to do this at the May 26th board meeting type of notification, but I have advised them that we will be reporting on specific projects where we have come to the board and requested permission to move forward with procurement on sales tax items.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Yes.
I just have a quick question while we have you all up here, and that is, what is the process for the ICOC reporting out to the board and the public on their take on the expenditure of the sales tax revenue?
We're looking at that now, and we think that the annual report to the board will most likely occur after the close of the fiscal year. So we're thinking sometime in maybe after their September meeting, reporting to the board. Right now, their April report, we haven't spent any money as of April, so there's nothing for them to really report to you. The June ICOC meeting will be the first time that we provide them with any analysis of our expenditures. It will be mostly time in planning for these expenditures as well as purchase orders that have been issued, but we've actually spent very little sales tax money to date.
Okay. So, will you make a motion?
Motion to approve F-37.
Second.
Okay, motion was made by Mr. Craig, seconded by Mrs. Henderson. I'm sure Sherwood will be pleased to hear that. Any further discussion? Please vote. We won't need to bring in the fans now. Okay. Okay, motion carries unanimously. Okay, I've heard a request for a breaks. Well, if we're going to take a break, let's take a 10-minute break. We'll reconvene in 10 minutes.
We will resume tonight's regularly scheduled board meeting in approximately 5 minutes. Resume tonight's regularly scheduled board meeting in approximately 2 minutes. Tonight's regularly scheduled board meeting in approximately 1 minute. We will resume tonight's regularly scheduled board meeting in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2.
I don't see the picture. Okay. Welcome back. We'll move on to the information agenda. The information agenda includes items for board review and will be brought for action at a subsequent meeting. No action will be taken on these items tonight. Dr. Bingley.
Thank you, Ms. Nisi. There are 7 items under the information category.
Does any member wish to discuss anything on the information agenda? All right. Okay, there are no staff reports and there are no additional public presentations. We're now at board member reports and discussion points sections. In addition to discussion points, I request that board members please include any information requests to be placed on the board assigned tasks. Mrs. Belford, we'll start off with you, who you wanted to have discussion about the non-discrimination policy.
Thank you, Ms. Nisi. And I think, Mr. Beislein, that perhaps you were going to provide some information for us on how our policy stands now in comparison to what is required for the policy and what our options are moving forward.
And prior to him doing that, just to add that I did finally figure out, found where the policy at that our audience was referring to. And the policy they're referring to is 2260. And on all of our student handbooks and a lot of our programs, where you see all the staff listed up at the top, there is a statement. They don't call it a policy. It's a non-discrimination notice, and I believe it comes directly out of policy 2260. I'm looking back at staff. Is that where they get that notice from, Dr. Pace? Nothing like putting you on the spot.
They had to look it up.
Yeah, if you guys will look at that maybe, but it looks like to me it matches up to policy 2260. It does. So, Mr. Beislein, I know you and I have had several conversations about this, about legally why we have listed, because if it were up to me, I would have one policy that says Brevard, the school board of Brevard County doesn't discriminate, period. But explain to me why I can't do that.
Well, I submitted a memo to the board some time ago, and nothing's changed since I did that. It's my opinion, and I think other speakers have acknowledged that our non-discrimination policies, as they relate to students and/or employees or applicants for employment, are in accordance with state and federal law that apply to us.
And what does that mean, in accordance with?
That means that they are compliant with state and federal law.
So
And
there
it's
are
language in
specific, so there are specific categories by law that we have to list. So I can't just say, or we as a board can't say we will not discriminate, period.
There are laws that prohibit discrimination based on certain characteristics and classifications. And those are listed in our non-discrimination statements in our policies. We are compliant with state law and federal law. The federal law, of course, applies throughout the country, and states have their own laws, and it can be in addition to federal law. But we have both. So, and we are responsible to comply with both state and federal law in this area, and we do.
Okay, questions from board members?
Referring to the requirements by state and federal law, on the document that you sent out to us, there is one county, which I won't mention by name, but second page, third one down.
That was the one I was looking at.
That doesn't identify categories, which is what Ms. Nisi was just referring to. Would the assumption then be that they are not in compliance with state and federal law?
There says does not discriminate with regard to access, admissions, or treatment in any educational programs or activity or in employment policies.
First page, third one down?
Yes.
Second page, third one down.
Second page. That is their non-discrimination statement, which is a general statement. And they may have additional policies that are more specific than that. But this is a statement that we took right off of their website.
So they might have that in the same place that we have our, what's it called again? Notice. So this is their non-discrimination, I'm going to write that down. That's our policy 2260. So we use policy right up at the top. Well, we call it notice on all of our handbooks, but this is what we use. Oh, that's what we use.
Madam Chair.
Yes, I'm sorry.
If I could just share my thoughts on the issue as a whole.
Please.
If you look on the first page of that document where it outlines our statements for Brevard County, it doesn't include 2260 specifically, I don't think, but it's got two different blocks there that include the language that we have for Brevard County, which is pretty extensive. I think where we're at, although we may be in compliance with federal and state law, I think because our list is so extensive, the absence of language referring to gender identity or sexual orientation is significant because there are so many other things included there and those are not. So whether we discuss including those particular terms in our policy or we look at a way that we can make our policy more inclusive without including so many specific terms, I think it's something that as a board we should at least consider our options, and perhaps if Mr. Beislein could weigh in on what our options would be there within state and federal law. Are we required to have all of those categories listed?
We are required by the Department of Education to have a policy that has certain specific wording in it, and they look at that and they approve it. And I just want to say one other thing about the particular items that we're talking about. Those two categories or characteristics have not been included in law as being a protected class.
I'm not, and obviously I'm only speaking for me, for one board member. I'm not necessarily, my concern is not whether or not we are required to have those two terms, but are we required to have the other terms that are inclusive?
I'm going to answer that question first. The answer is yes.
Well, I guess, okay. Well, I guess my only thing is I understand for policy and procedures, but, you know, usually only board nerds like me go through and read policy and procedures. The thing that people read are the booklets and handouts and things like that. And so if it's not as important, if that doesn't have to be policy and procedure, why can't we do what the unnamed county on the back of page 1, the one that we referred to, why can't that be our non-discrimination statement, since it doesn't have to be policy or procedure, and it can be the all-encompassing, Brevard County Public Schools does not discriminate with regard to access, admissions, or treatment in any educational programs, and there's no listing there. It's just, we don't discriminate, period. Because I hate listing. That's what I want to, you know, to me, we can make a, you know, because then you just start listing, well, we don't discriminate with people that own dogs or cats or people that wear pink shoes or wear red bow ties or, you know, the list could go on and on. Yeah, people with suspenders.
Still talking about the second page, third one down?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Now, that is a general statement, and I'm sure there's more to it behind that statement than what you're reading here as far as what their policy would say, because, you know, frankly, that statement doesn't say a heck of a lot. I mean, people discriminate when you make a decision every day.
Well, I try not to. Yeah.
So the problem I see then is that we're comparing apples and oranges then. So you've given us our policy, and then everyone else is just statement off their website. So then this really doesn't give me
Then
any
this doesn't help
information
us any.
whatsoever.
No, I was asked for non-discrimination statements, and that's what this is. These are non-discrimination
You gave us
statements.
what's our statement then? Where's ours?
Ours is the one,
No, those are policy.
but our statement is policy 2260. We use the policy as our statement. If you take out the words, "it is the policy,"
I agree. And that's my point, is that you're going down, I understand the path you're going down, and I don't think, I think we're missing the conversation between the attorney and what we're asking here.
please.
I think what's happening here is we have statements that we put out to the general public so that they can read them without diving into your board policies. And there's a general statement that alerts them to what our policy is.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead. I was going to see.
First, I want to back up a little because the board did have a little of this discussion. We made a board request, and I don't know whatever happened to that board request. So at some point in time, we need to revisit how board requests are taken and when we could expect answers back. Secondly, to our audience, and Mrs. Belfer made a very good point, that changing any of these policies is not going to affect bullying. Unfortunately, kids don't read policies. It would be great if they did and if they complied, but unfortunately they don't. And as a community, we do need to work on that more. They shouldn't be bullied for any reason, even if they wear suspenders. I mean, it's just not acceptable. So that's something else we need to address. Mr. Beislein, let's be a little more clear-cut on this. First of all, does adding these words to any of our policies or procedures or rules or whatever you want to call them put us out of compliance with anything required to do? Yes or no?
No.
Thank you. Is there any legal reason we can't add these words to our policies or procedures?
Legal reason that this board couldn't do it if this board wanted to do it.
Okay, so then I'll ask the board, is there any reason the board can think of that we shouldn't make these changes? Because personally, as far as I'm concerned, we can list things till the cows come home, and that's perfectly okay if it clarifies how important these things are to us and how important it is to our community. I would then request that we add this verbiage anywhere. It says anything even remotely resembling, we will not discriminate against race, color, sex, religion, etc. Add whatever is applicable that shows how important this is and how important it is to our community. And I think that's what the board needs to ask for, is find everywhere this is addressed and show us what it would look like to make those changes so we can look at them and decide if we want those changes.
Is there, I mean, if we're currently in compliance, what would this do for anything to add these words? And most people are talking 4 words, and somebody else said 7 words. I don't know what the 7 words are. So is there more to it than was discussed?
Well, let's talk about two different things here. One, you got bullying. We have a state statute, 1006, that outlaws bullying and requires the district to prevent bullying to the best that you can based on what the statute says. And that does not allow bullying of students for any reason. And we have that policy, and we follow that law. So that's the student side of it. The other side of it would be your employment side of it, applicants and employees. And the question is, if adding those statements, would it change things? I don't know if it would change anything, but my guess is it might have some operational impacts.
What kind of operational impacts? Would you like to think about this and bring us a list back?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd like to.
I mean, because I need, I need more information to make me want to change this. Because I need to know what the impacts are to the district. What does this really mean? I guess I just don't understand why everything isn't already covered in what we say. Is what they're asking for covered in what we say? I understand it's not specific, but is it covered?
No,
Pause.
because those, I'm talking 2 words, 4 words, 2 for each term. Okay? Those classifications are not covered by our policy, nor are they required to be in our policy as it relates to employment and applicants for employment. Okay?
Then all the more reason to do it.
Ms. Pace?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you discriminate against?
Yeah,
do
no,
we
say
currently
what?
discriminate? I mean,
No, ma'am. The current policies and procedures that we have, basically say that we're not going to discriminate. And I do want to make sure for the record, Mrs. Nisi, that I was incorrect. It's not actually Policy 2260, although that is the basis for our non-discrimination notice comes from. Mr. Langdorf handles our non-discrimination notices. It's published, for example, this is the student progression plan. It's in the handbook. It's on our website. It's
Yeah, where do we
required
find it
to
on
be
the website?
posted in a lot of different places. And it has the statements that you have, that Pam shared with you in the document, that protect students and that protect employees. And then, as Mr. Beislein indicated, we have procedures for individuals, both students and employees, to file complaints or concerns, and we launch an investigation if they believe they have been bullied or discriminated against.
okay.
Oh, please, yes, I'm still looking.
Mr. Beislein, I appreciate you doing more research, and I was trying to do a bunch of it over the last couple of days as well. Can I add to that the legal definitions between orientation and preference? Because I don't, the city of Rockledge passed or their new addition was sexual preference, but we've been asked to look at sexual orientation. I don't know if there's a difference there. I look at the different policies that, or at least statements that you provided us, and they're different. Some say preference, some say orientation. Same with gender. Some say identity, some say expression. I don't know the difference, and I don't know if there's a legal difference, or if there is, something that we need to think about there. I just would like to have a little bit more information on that as well.
I'd be happy to research that and provide you the best information I can give you about what those terms mean and if they're different or not.
I guess my next question would be, if you don't mind, Ms. Nisi, is the list that you gave us here are the statements, and so of course we can go look at the third one on the back, which is different than their policy. So if these are their statements, I would like to know if their policies were changed. Do you see what I'm saying?
Sure.
These are the statements. If their policies were like ours, are their policies still like ours, but their statements are different?
I'll go back and look at the policies, compare them to the statements, and give you both of them.
That would be good.
For these particular, I think this is a good cross-section.
That would be helpful. Yeah, Misty?
I would also like to request that when you're gathering that information for us, Mr. Beislein, if you could please provide us with specifically what federal and state law require that we include as far as characteristics in those policies, and whether the requirement is that it be included in the statement or the policy. And then from staff, if we could please have some input on any potential operational impacts from changes in those policies or statements or notices. I think that would help us to better understand the situation, to make a more thorough decision.
We'll do it.
Okay, so, everybody clear?
And in addition, we will be at the FSBA, so we will have the opportunity to talk to some people from all of these places.
Sounds good. Okay, so everyone, you guys all clear? Okay. Okay. Okay, next point of discussion is an update on the superintendent search. If you could each pull out their copy of the timeline in front of you and take a moment to take a look at it. I'll put on my old lady reading glasses. As you can see, we are gearing up to get very busy very quickly. I talked with Gary Ray this afternoon, and I am pleased to report we have approximately 100 completed applications. So over the next 2 days, Pam is going to be very busy. She's going to be the one copying those, and we will have those by Thursday. Keep your fingers crossed, because as you can see next week, we will be having our individual meetings with Ray and Associates to go through those applications. And by the way, out of those 100 applications, we did have probably 8 to 10 of the hybrid candidates apply. So we're going to have some of those to take a look at. We have people from within Florida, outside of Florida, people from Texas. So maybe we'll have somebody going to Texas. Come. So who knows? But we have a good variety of people. I'm real excited to take a look at those. Take a look at the dates. You can see that the dates, the times, all of that. We did have one change in our ad hoc committee. The EDC, did you have a chance to send out that email yet, Pam? Okay. They're going to be swapping out their committee member. But there was a request at the last board meeting to have the community provide additional input during the public interview process. I had a lot of time to think about that. I talked with Pam. I know I talked with our consultant. I talked with Gary Ray. I know I had Gary call and talk with you, Misty, because I know that was a concern of yours. And I'll have to be real honest. The selection of the Brevard Public School Superintendent is very important to the community as a whole. And to this end, all BPS stakeholders were given the opportunity to provide input on the top 10 qualifications to look for in our new superintendent. At this point, the final decision makers in this process are the 5 people sitting up here. And I know that each of us realize that no other decision we make as a board is more important than that one decision. I believe that we've planned and implemented a process that's included an opportunity for community input, as well as the formation of an ad hoc committee that encompasses all geographic regions of Brevard County. And at this time, it's my recommendation as your chair that we continue as planned and only have the written input from the ad hoc committee after each public interview. As always, during the public comment section of the special school board meeting portion, individuals will be able to provide remarks and suggestions. And as we all know, all stakeholders can contact the board via email, comments, suggestions, and phone. And so, unless 3 of you feel differently, I really feel strongly that we continue forward with what we have laid out. So.
Are we able to work on our own with the public?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we could accept whatever we want directly. Anybody can communicate with us as long as it works into the timeline and doesn't delay any of our processes. And yeah, we should always be welcome to hear from our community about what they think, or even reach out to people that might be able to guide us.
I really believe to do any other written document lessens the value of the ad hoc committee. I could see sitting on that committee, and if we're giving out the same form to the others in the audience, the committee members sitting there thinking, well, why am I here then? Why are you asking me to do that? The other thing that you want to be really careful as board members is this is our job. This is our one employee that we hire, that we supervise. And, everybody will be the first to tell you who you think you ought to hire, but if if we make a mistake, all of a sudden those people are not going to be coming around saying, oops, I'm sorry. They're going to be pointing the finger and saying you screwed up. So this isn't a decision to be taken lightly, and we're the ones that ran for the job and need to make the final decision. So do I hear a majority to move forward as the timeline is stated?
I agree.
Okay, so before I move on, I want to remind board members that you need to send suggested interview questions to Pam by the end of this week so that she can forward them to Ray and Associates in advance of our June 2nd board meeting. And Pam, would you remind the ad hoc committee members? We haven't heard anything from them either, have we?
Please send us a reminder email.
Well, and if any of the people watching have questions they want to send to us as board members, I'll be happy. Yeah. Okay, questions on the superintendent search? Hope everyone's up for some heavy reading this weekend.
No.
So we'll move into board reports. Nope, sorry, I turned the page. Yes.
Okay, so they have 100, and they're going to give us all 100. They've
not weeded out any.
They haven't weeded out any. Okay, so we'll pick ours, and
That's part of your one-on-one with our consultant.
Right. I'll have mine done before then.
Probably matrix and everything,
Yeah,
right? Okay.
Exactly. Okay.
You good? Okay, who wants to start? Okay,
I'll start.
great.
And I'll keep it short. Obviously, we all were able to go to many graduations, but I was sharing with somebody, I think, earlier, one of the coolest things I got to do was go to the Merritt Island High School, I guess you call it awards ceremony. It's really the recognition for the students who get various scholarships, and I think Merritt Island garnered about total of what they accepted, now not total that was offered, but about $2.4 million between the students there, so a pretty good amount. But I actually went not as a board member, but as a Naval Academy alumni and as an officer or a member of MOA to give the appointment to a young lady, Sabella Goodwin, to the Naval Academy, and that was really cool because that was one of the it's. We use this term at the Naval Academy, a link in the chain, and so you have reach back, to a student and reach forward to an alumni, and just to see to think about myself in that place 32 years ago, whatever it was pretty cool to see her and just see how excited she was to accept that. Not only that, there was a Merchant Marine Academy appointee and an Air Force Academy appointee, all from Merritt Island High School, which was pretty neat. And at Edgewood's ceremony the next day, there was a Coast Guard Academy appointee. So pretty impressive. I know that there are tons of other things, but being a military person, it was really neat to see that. Also at the Merritt Island High School graduation, something I've never seen before, and I've been to many graduations, but Principal Vega asked every student or every graduate that was entering the military to stand and to be recognized while they played a selection of music. It was really cool. It was a very fitting tribute to the folks that are making that extra sacrifice as they move on from high school. So that was pretty neat. Got to go to the Brevard Virtual School graduation, which was really interesting. Great kids, only 7 of them. It's inside, so it's nice. But really just some accomplished young people that, for a variety of reasons, there was one military family there that moved around quite a bit, that the virtual school just works better for them. And the accomplishments and the things that they do on their own, I think about how, as a parent, you sit there and you're shepherding your kids, and here these kids are not only have their parents, but they're doing it on their own by the time they hit that stride, and they are focused, and they know time management, which is what I talked to a bunch of them about, and that's something that I think. I know when I went into college, I learned very quickly about time management, so these kids already have it. Pretty neat. The last thing I just wanted to bring up is something that I would like us to, as we move into the summer and start, hopefully during board reports or the board information things that come out. You saw the final notes from the last Insurance Advisory Committee meeting and their recommendations. I think they did a great job. I will say that I'm disappointed in the fact that we don't have any recommendations that are going to take any burden off of our employees at this point. And specifically, Dr. Pace, I'm just going to look at you because as a board request, I have got a couple things that I would like us to have in our hip pocket as we start moving forward into those discussions. There are three things. A second plan offering, what that could look like and what the cost could be. And I'd like Willis to help us with that, obviously. I'd also like them to give us a monetary figure for combining our deductibles. You know, we have this deductible for medical, we have a deductible for pharmacy, and while it's not unheard of, it is certainly not the norm across industry or across even public sector. I would like us to figure out how we do better in that arena. This separation between the two does cause quite a heartache. I know we're changing the pharmacy program to hopefully, that was one of the great recommendations I think that came out of the SIAC was how to change the pharmacy program to bring down some of the costs of those drugs, but I'd like to look a little further at what Willis sees. They can quickly, I think, put it into a calculation to figure out what it's going to look like from a cost perspective in that regard. And then finally, I'd like to look at and I know y'all probably heard this already, but a fully funded dental plan for employees, and then a cost share for your family. A fully funded dental plan, by my estimations, just from background, cost this district from usage and percentages about $600,000 would give us, you know, our cleanings and your x-rays, meaning that the employee doesn't pay for it. That's a benefit for them. That to me is a comprehensive piece of a medical plan, and it's something that I think that adds to the overall wellness of the person and the individual and fosters good health, and giving that, there are some very, very attractive plans that we can look at to do that. So I'd like to look at those three things, if we could, and like I said, get that projected cost for the single deductible. So that's about all I have.
Ms. Henderson?
Well, I, like all the rest of you, spent the weekend at graduations, and Dr. Bingley and Ms. Nisi and I all had graduates ourselves this year, as well as Ms. Klein and Dr. Theddy. Who else?
Oh, Dr. Mullins?
Dr. Mullins. There's a whole bunch of us. That's right, Stephanie Archer. That was the other one. And and you did too? Oh, geez. And so it was quite the weekend. It's quite the Tuesday morning, not sending my oldest to school this morning because I really wanted to go in and wake her up because she's so exhausted, but that's another story.
Mine had to. Mine had to go to work at 8 this morning. Woohoo!
So it was a great time. I went to Viera, obviously, and then to Edgewood with Mr. Craig, and then flew from there down to Rockledge just in time to sit in the traffic for 30 minutes before you get there. But it was a good time, and I always enjoyed this time of year. It really shows what we're really here for and the successes of our students and the excitement of the students and the parents. Oh my gosh. They absolutely love the fact that their kids have worked so hard, and you know, it's just a heartwarming time for everybody. I really enjoy it. And enough about that, and I want to know exactly what's on our June 23rd meeting.
Okay. Is that the one on discipline? Budget workshop. Which one's it?
I know, I want to know what all's going to be on that
Okay,
meeting.
well,
Could
I'm
we-
talking with Dr. Theddy tomorrow morning at 10 about that.
Oh, good. So when you come up with a agenda for that, would you let me know at your earliest convenience? Thank you.
Will do. I want to be last, so Andy?
Yes, graduations are always a great time. It's very heartwarming to see these kids and their accomplishments. It's amazing at all the different schools. And you know, you always hear people say, well, this school's better than that school. And I'll tell you what, they're all equally amazing with the number of honors students, advanced placement students, AA degree students. National Merit, all these, it's just amazing. Every school's just loaded to the hilt with them. So obviously, all our schools are doing a great job. And it's really interesting to see all the different emotions in the kids. You know, some of them are just so thrilled they can't stand still. Some of them are so nervous they're almost crying. It's just a really wonderful, wonderful time. So congratulations to all of our graduates. We still got another graduation tomorrow night, West Shore, and I think the whole world's going to be there since there's no conflict with another graduation. I still like to figure out how I go to all the graduations for the 3 high schools in my district, but apparently for some strange reason I'm the only one that has a conflict. Nobody else really cares about each of the others for the most part, and I can't ask them to change their graduations. For me, that's just not right. Yeah, so, oh well, so that happens, but it's a good thing. Mr. Craig, good point to a second option for our plan. I've never understood why we didn't have a second option. They've claimed that it saves us money. I don't see really why it saves us money, as it's all nickels and dimes, and in the past, I think in the long run it saved us money because they have different provider rates, and people don't know what I'm talking about. Mr. Craig does. So I sometimes think we don't analyze those things appropriately, but I think we're on the right track now. And I think we're going to have a lot of good things. And yes, I'd like to see things that don't hurt our employees in their pocket by gutting the plan. And we need to restore some of those things that were great about our policy, our insurance. That's probably about it for now. I'll keep it short and sweet.
I would just echo the sentiments of the graduations. I think so many times we hear of the negatives in society and all that's going on and the bad choices that children make, and older children, not typically 5- and 6-year-olds, but the older ones. And I think one thing that really echoed with me after the graduations this weekend is we have some amazing kids that are entering the world as adults and graduates from high school this week, and so it gave me some hope for the future to some extent, that there are some great things going on and some great kids out there that are working really hard to make the world a better place and do great things. So that was excellent. Just kind of piggybacking on the insurance comment, I have had comments with Susan Stanley regarding this, but our retiree insurance is quite a debacle. So as we are exploring options for our employee insurance, if we could also take a look at that, because I'm getting a lot of feedback from our retirees that are saying we just really feel like we've been thrown to the wolves on this and it's not working out well for us at all. A lot of that, I think, Susan has been able to work with people to provide some relief, but I think as a whole there are some problems with the consortium that we went with. So I just want to put that on the radar.
Okay. Please remember FSBA is coming up, and if you looked at your email, our board of directors seat, someone will have to be there to ensure that Andy will still continue to be our board of directors. John, you'll still be going as our alternate. We have to officially put those in again this time, so I understand we'll all be there for this one. Okay, one thing that I would like to put on a board assigned task, Pam, is I guess I would like to have either from Gino or somebody an understanding of why we keep having schools go without phone service. It seems like a daily basis we get phones are down somewhere, and we pay a lot for phone service. I know sometimes it's not our fault. I don't know if it's an internal problem or an external problem, but I want a better understanding about why we have continued phone outages, and I want to know what can be done, whether is it a provider problem, is it an internal problem? I just want a better understanding because it just seems to be happening every week, and I want to know what we can do to make that stop. And graduation, same thing. We need to make sure Mr. Fleming knows when to sign up for the King Center next year. Mrs. Van Meter, do we need to make sure we send him an email to sign up next time? Oh, he already knows? Yeah, he didn't. Reason his is so late, we don't have his graduation till tomorrow, is because, what's his story that he didn't know when to sign up at the King Center or something? Yes.
And a private school also got there before him.
So just one kind of a funny comment, just I thought was interesting that my son shared with me is, You know, I asked him his last day of school, well, you know, it's your last day of public school, last day as a senior, you know, how was it? And he says, you know, Mom, you know, he said 13 years ago when I was in kindergarten, you know, what first thing they did with us is teach us how to walk in a straight line. And he says, 13 years later, here I am as a senior, and what do they have us doing? Walking in a straight line. He goes, you'd think after 13 years we would have figured it out by now. So, because they had graduation practice. So anyway, I thought interesting observation from my son. So anyway, I'm glad all of our seniors got through graduation and project graduation safely. Thank you to everyone, and I will, Dr. Bingley, do you have a report? I was getting ready to adjourn the meeting. My apologies.
Miniature report. I'm going to come in on behalf of our kids too, because it's that time of year, but I'll even go back. You know, there's, you remember a couple of years ago, our Bayside was the Florida High School Jefferson Awards winner for volunteerism, and I went down there and talked to 7 kids who really spearheaded that effort, and when they talked about why they did what they did, you know, I came back and told some folks, you know, because we're in testing and accountability, if we're going to try to determine what kids are going to be 25 years from now, the most productive, high character, you know, members of our society and our community, you can give any test to any 7 you want. I'll take those 7 right there. And I say this every year when we come back from commencement. I'll say it again. You all heard it. You know, the biggest cheer never goes up for the valedictorian, the quarterback. It always goes up for a kid who had the biggest hill to climb, right? And as long as that's happening, I know we've got some character sitting out in those chairs. So I'm very proud of them. I want to say this. We talked a little bit about bullying. You're going to get this report later on. I won't hear it. But, you know, the Department of Ed does come around, and they audit our efforts in trying to work to, you know, engage our kids in avoiding bullying. And we just went through that auditing process. And I'm going to tell you, and they do this with every county, and Beth, you can tell me when I'm wrong, but they went through not only our policies, but our processes, our strategies. We have youth leadership teams that we've brought into this equation. Beth's done a phenomenal job. We told our kids, if we'll ever solve this, you've got to help us. And they're stepping up and doing that. They talked about our older kids in feeder patterns, talking to our younger kids, our robust processes for helping our school-based administrators, the fact that our kids can report on site and they can report through our website and all. I mean, they basically said, Brevard has done a good job compared to what they see in this state in trying to help address this issue. You'll get their report, but I'll just tell you that they were very complimentary of the work that's being done. Finally, just earlier in the week, we went to had the supply zone for teachers where we were able to bring our homeless liaisons over, and not only to get school supplies, but clothing that has been donated, and a lot of hygiene products, things that our liaisons that, you know, came over, and that's the second one this year. And I'll segue into, for those of you who have not met, Jessica, am I pronouncing this right? Seggio? Yeah, see, a Brevard grad, right? Look at you, go ahead. Go War Eagles, right? Am I right on that? Did I remember that correctly? But Jessica came out and reported on that event, and it was a great event, and tons of stuff that we've been able to now put in the hands of our liaisons. We're going to put in the hands of kids who need it. So thank you, Jessica, for coming out and reporting on that. And with that, I will stop. Thank you.
Okay. Is there any more business to come before the board? We are adjourned.